My cousin insulted me at her wedding because I was her husband's ex-wife, so I took legal action against her. My cousin Emily, 26, started dating my ex-boyfriend James, 28, 3 years ago. I, also 28, had been with James for 2 years. Our relationship began after he finished college, while I was still in my 3rd year at university. Things between us lasted 2 years, ending shortly after my 21st birthday. Looking back, it was a toxic relationship, and I regretted being my first serious one as an adult. While we appeared to be a perfect couple on the outside, the reality was far from it. James was insecure and controlling, refusing to let me do anything on my own, whether it was hanging out with friends or talking to male acquaintances. He constantly kept tabs on me and manipulated me whenever I didn't comply with his demands. If I didn't do what he wanted, he would gaslight me, making it seem like all the issues in our relationship were my fault. In an effort to make things work, I kept bending over backward to accommodate him, but nothing was ever enough. Eventually, he ended things, claiming the relationship wasn't working. He blocked me completely, cutting all ties. I tried to reach out, but he was gone. A few months later, I found out through mutual contacts that he had already started dating someone else. It felt like such a waste of time, and I resented him for a while. For a long time after our breakup, we had no contact. Then, on my 26th birthday, James unblocked me and messaged me out of the blue, wishing me a happy birthday. I didn't respond because I had moved on and was in a new relationship. Even though I ignored him, he continued sending messages until I blocked him again. A few months later, Emily invited me over. When I arrived, she said she wanted me to meet someone, and to my shock, it was James. The reason he had reached out earlier was to clear the air before he and Emily made their relationship public. They had met at work and become serious. Emily and I had always been close, so this revelation hit hard. She knew how badly things had ended between James and me and how toxic he had been. Despite that, she asked me to support their relationship. I wanted to be happy for her, but it was too much. I told her I couldn't accept it and wouldn't remain in her life anymore. Although she tried several times to talk to me, I couldn't reconcile her decision. She was aware of how much he had hurt me and still chose to be with him. She insisted he'd changed, but I didn't believe it. She was free to date him, but I also had the right to cut both of them out of my life. For me, it was a simple and necessary decision for my own peace of mind. But it was also hard because Emily wasn't just my cousin, she had been one of my closest friends. Still, I needed to prioritize my well-being, so I distanced myself from her. After she told me about her relationship with James, I gradually stopped speaking to her. Over the past 2 years, we grew increasingly distant. Once she realized I wouldn't reconnect, she started pulling away too. I didn't blame her. At family events, we'd act like strangers, which was a sharp contrast to the bond we once shared. Before, we'd been inseparable, always gossiping and laughing together. Now, everything had changed, and I'd made peace with it. I had no problem with Emily choosing her own path, even if it included James. I simply didn't want to engage with them. That should have been the end of it. But instead of accepting my choice, Emily seemed to take it personally and began badmouthing me to other family members. She started spreading rumors about me, painting me as the villain in my past relationship with James. She told people that I was the reason our relationship ended and accused me of lacking morals. James joined in, claiming I had flirted with other men while we were together, suggesting that my behavior caused him to become insecure and controlling. In reality, it was the opposite. James had always been overly friendly with other women and didn't want me to have any male friends, even though I kept those friendships strictly platonic. He gaslighted me into cutting people out of my life, and his behavior was the real problem in our relationship. The rumors Emily and James spread were hurtful, but I was too busy with my own life to care much. Besides, most people didn't believe their nonsense. I ignored it, knowing that reacting would only feed their drama. If I really wanted to shut it down, I could have gone straight to my aunt, Emily's mother, who has always been a no-nonsense, principled person. As a federal court judge, she's not one to tolerate dishonesty or manipulation. I decided not to bother my aunt, even though I was still close to her. I figured I could handle things on my own and see how far Emily and James would take their antics. Meanwhile, some cousins who overheard their gossip would come to me, shaking their heads at the absurdity of it all. Honestly, I started to find their attempts to smear me more entertaining than upsetting. 6 months ago, Emily and James got engaged. Soon after, wedding invitations went out. My parents received one, but I didn't, and I wasn't surprised. I had no intention of attending, even if I'd been invited. The wedding happened 3 days ago, and I treated it like any other day. But later that evening, my phone was flooded with messages from family members. They were all talking about a speech Emily and James gave during the wedding, and I was baffled. When my parents called to explain, I was furious. During their speech, Emily and James took the opportunity to insult me in front of everyone. They didn't mention my name directly but referred to a certain ex-girlfriend, who wasn't there. Everyone knew they were talking about me. They repeated the same false claims they'd spread before, that I was a flirt, a gold digger, and financially dependent on James while we were together. They even accused me of cheating on him, which they claimed was the reason our relationship ended. Then, they made it worse. They told the family that they were relieved I was out of their lives, claiming they didn't want someone so toxic around them. They issued an ultimatum to the entire family: they would not attend any future events if I was invited. Hearing this, I was livid. My parents, who had attended the wedding out of respect for my aunt, left immediately after the speech. They couldn't believe Emily had stooped so low. My aunt, confused by the whole ordeal, asked them if there was any truth to Emily's claims. My parents assured her it was all lies. That night, I decided to set the record straight. I dug up old messages between James and me from when we were breaking up. He had said terrible things back then, calling our relationship a waste of time and saying he wished he'd been with someone else instead. There wasn't a single mention of cheating. If I'd truly cheated, James wouldn't have let me off so easily. I also found older conversations where he was being manipulative and toxic toward me. I posted screenshots of those chats online without any context, letting them speak for themselves. Almost immediately, people started reaching out, telling me they now knew Emily and James had been lying about me. Some relatives who'd been at the wedding even said they walked out because they were disgusted by what Emily and James had said. Their attempt to ruin my reputation had completely backfired. Not only did they fail to turn people against me, but they also alienated themselves. My aunt, who had always supported her daughter, was deeply disappointed. She told Emily that until she apologized to me and I forgave her, she wouldn't have anything to do with her. Emily tried to plead with my aunt, but it didn't work. My aunt left the wedding, upset and unwilling to tolerate her daughter's behavior any longer. That same night, Emily and James tried reaching out to me. They apologized over and over, begging me to forgive them. Their desperation wasn't hard to understand. Without my aunt's financial support, Emily and James would struggle. Emily had been relying on her mother for years, especially since her jewelry business wasn't doing well. From what I heard, she had even been planning to shut it down and take some time off, which would only make her more dependent on her mom. But after everything they had done, I wasn't in the mood to listen to apologies that felt more about convenience than genuine regret. I refused to respond and blocked both of them. Since then, they've been desperately trying to contact me through new accounts, emails, and even mutual connections, asking me to speak to my aunt on their behalf. Despite their efforts, I wasn't budging. My aunt called me the day after the wedding to apologize for what had happened and reassure me that she supported me. I told her I appreciated her concern but didn't want my falling out with Emily to affect our relationship. My aunt and I remain close, but I didn't feel any obligation to fix things for Emily. Still, I couldn't shake a lingering sense of guilt. I knew I could easily speak to my aunt and convince her to forgive Emily, but I also felt that Emily needed to face the consequences of her actions. She's a grown adult, nearly 30 years old, and it's time for her to take responsibility for the mess she created. I talked to my parents about my feelings, and they assured me that I was under no obligation to help Emily if I didn't think she deserved it. They reminded me of how patient I had been while she and James spread lies about me for over a year. I'd stayed quiet, hoping they'd move on, but instead, they escalated their behavior. After reflecting on everything, I realized I wasn't responsible for fixing their problems. I decided not to speak to my aunt on Emily's behalf. It wasn't an easy decision, but I felt it was the right one. I also removed the screenshots I had posted online, not because I regretted sharing them, but because I didn't want the situation to dominate my life any longer. Over the next few weeks, I focused on myself, meditating, reconnecting with friends, and letting go of the anger I had been carrying. I hoped that Emily and James would use this time to reflect on their behavior and move forward in a better direction. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Update 2. A month after the wedding, Emily and James went right back to spreading lies about me. This time, they got even more ridiculous, telling anyone who would listen that I was trying to ruin their relationship with my aunt so I could secure her inheritance for myself. The accusation was absurd. I'm financially stable, with supportive parents and a good career. I don't need anyone's inheritance to thrive. But it was clear that Emily and James were projecting their own financial insecurities onto me. Whenever they bumped into family members around town, they would bring up this narrative. Most people ignored them, but I couldn't help but feel annoyed. Why were they still so obsessed with me when I had done nothing to provoke them? Eventually, I had enough and told my aunt about their new rumors. She was furious. She made it clear to Emily that even if she apologized, there was no chance of reconciliation. Then she blocked Emily and James again, leaving them completely cut off from her support. This only made them angrier. Soon after, I received an email from a fake account, filled with angry messages about how I would pay for ruining their lives. It was unsettling, but I wasn't scared. I responded firmly, warning them that if they tried anything, I wouldn't hesitate to call the police. Update 3. 4 days ago, I received another threatening email from Emily and James. I repeated my warning to them, but they crossed a line. Last night, they tried to break into my house. Emily knows my house well and would have remembered that I have a top-tier security system. Unsurprisingly, the system alerted me immediately when they tried to force my door open at 1 a.m. I called the police right away. When the police arrived, Emily and James were caught nearby, trying to flee on bicycles. They'd even dressed like burglars, making their intentions clear. They claimed they weren't trying to steal anything but wanted to talk and teach me a lesson. It was ridiculous and only made them look worse. Emily broke down crying as soon as she was in handcuffs, begging me not to press charges. James just glared at me, full of hatred. But I was done. You can't behave like this and expect people to forgive you every time. This morning, I told my parents and aunt what happened. My aunt was shocked but not surprised when Emily used her one phone call to ask for bail. She refused to help and told Emily she needed to take responsibility for her actions. Now, I'm pressing charges and pursuing a protective order. I've tolerated enough from these two, and it's time to draw the line. It's been a few days since the break-in, and things are moving quickly. I filed charges against both Emily and James for attempted burglary and harassment, and I'm working with my lawyer to secure a restraining order. I made it clear to the police that I wanted the law to take its course because I genuinely believe these two need to face the consequences of their actions. Meanwhile, I've been hearing updates from family members about how Emily and James are coping. They've completely burned their bridges with most of the family. Not only is my aunt refusing to support them financially, but several other relatives are also cutting ties, outraged by their actions. It seems like the only people they have left are each other. Emily has been calling and emailing everyone she can think of, trying to drum up sympathy. She claims that she and James made a mistake and just want a second chance, but no one is buying it anymore. Their behavior at the wedding, the rumors they spread, and now the break-in, it's all too much for anyone to overlook. Some relatives have reached out to me, encouraging me to forgive Emily. They say she's family, and family should stick together. While I appreciate their concern, I firmly told them that forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone continue to hurt you. I've forgiven Emily enough times in the past, and every time, she's taken advantage of it. I'm not doing that anymore. My aunt called me again to check in, and I told her about the protective order I'm pursuing. She fully supported my decision and reiterated that Emily wouldn't be receiving any help from her until she demonstrated real accountability, if ever. I felt relieved knowing that my aunt wasn't wavering in her stance. Final update. It's now been a few weeks since the break-in, and things have finally settled down. The court granted me a restraining order against Emily and James, which includes a no-contact clause. This means they can no longer email, call, or message me, and they're legally prohibited from coming near my home or workplace. The legal process for the burglary charges is still ongoing, but my lawyer says the case is strong. The evidence, including my security footage, makes it clear that their actions were deliberate. While I don't take any joy in seeing them face legal consequences, I know it's necessary. I've taken steps to move on from this whole ordeal. I've been focusing on my work, spending time with friends, and reconnecting with relatives who have supported me through all of this. I've also been seeing a therapist to process everything that's happened and to make sure I don't carry any lingering resentment or guilt. As for Emily and James, I've heard that they're struggling. Emily's jewelry business has officially shut down, and James's job might be in jeopardy because of the charges against him. They've apparently been staying with a friend because they can't afford their apartment anymore. While I don't wish them harm, I also don't feel responsible for their situation. They made their choices, and now they're dealing with the fallout. This experience has taught me a lot about boundaries and self-respect. Sometimes, the healthiest thing you can do is step away from toxic people, even if they're family. Forgiveness is a powerful thing, but it doesn't mean you have to let people continue to hurt you. To anyone reading this who's struggling with toxic family dynamics, it's okay to put yourself first. You deserve peace, and it's not your responsibility to fix someone who refuses to change. Thank you to everyone who offered advice and support throughout this situation. I'm finally in a place where I feel free, and I'm ready to move forward with my life. Thank you for watching the video. Subscribe and turn on notifications to be the first to have radish and real stories with you. Have a great day.